Welcome to the Mortgage Podcast, where we give tactics, strategies, and inspiration to get you to 10 plus loans per month. We talk a lot about how to make a ton of money in mortgage while also being happy and thriving in your personal life. If you want to be a mortgage millionaire, you're in the right place. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Mortgage Podcast with Todd Scrima, and it's a delight to have you. I've got a kind of a dream thought process for you today, and I want you to be with me, and I want you to really think about this. My biggest concern is I'm going to say some things that you're like, that'll never happen. I could never do that. Let me go back for a second. My parents divorced when I was 2, and they remarried when I was 3 years old. On one side of the family, I grew up on a family farm. My grandfather owned this farm, and he built a little house, like, I don't know, it's got to be 800 square feet for he and his wife, my grandma. And about 300 yards away, there was another house he built, and that was a 3-bedroom house, maybe 1,300 square feet. And on the farm, we had cattle and chickens and goats and pigs and on and on and on. 1 acre vegetable garden. I mean, it was, quite the farm. It sounds romantic. However, it was not. It was a lot of work. And I was 9 years old, started milking the cows and the goats, at 5:30 in the morning. So taught me a lot of work ethic. On the other side of town, Dad was a musician and my stepmother was a school teacher, and they were just getting started in their life. And we lived not in a single wide, in a double wide trailer. It was pretty upscale, okay? Double wide trailer. That was my humble beginning. Fast forward, a lot of things happened. When I was in the 8th grade, I got sent to the principal's office. I thought I was a pretty good kid. So I'm like, what did I do wrong? Principal wanted me to interview for this process that the Veterans Administration does called Boys State. Is something they do in all 50 states, and they select one 8th grader from each high school in America. I'm not sure if it's one per high school, but it's something like that. And they send, in my case, 600 kids to a college campus over summer, and you elect and run a state government for a week. Well, the first 2 days is elections. So I get there. I was very shy as a child. And I remember sitting there, of course, when you're running a state government, the number one elected official is governor. And for some reason, I thought, instead of being a senator or something like that, why don't I just go for it? I'm going to run for governor. To this day, I can't tell you why I thought that way. I just thought, what have I got to lose? Well, what I didn't know is I had to give 2 speeches in front of 600 of my peers, and I had to do a talent show in front of my peers. So got through it, the ballots came out, and I didn't win. So I ended up taking like a counselor, some small position, and I still had a blast, and I learned a lot. The point of the story is not about anything other than taking a risk, thinking bigger. A lot of things happened. I was the second person in my entire family to go to college. I did it on my own. I paid for my own college. I put myself through college. I did my own application. I figured it out. I just learned to take more risks like that as I got older and older. So when I say retire on 16 million, it's beginning with the end in mind. Now, I just want you to dream with me for a second. Let's say you retired at 60 or 65 or so, and you did have 16 million. And again, you could spend, simple number to use is 5% depletion rate. So 5% a year of 16 million is 800,000, which would be 66,000 a month that you could spend. That's a lot of money. Let's not get tied yet to if we're going to do it or not, or if that's too much pressure, or if the number needs to be 8 million. Let's just slow down for a second. And I just want to sit there and think about it. What if we did that? It's kind of a disclaimer. I do not think money makes you a better person. I do not think you should worship money or anything like that. I do think money is a tool. If you could travel the world, give a lot of money to charity, leave some money for your kids or grandkids, I think that's cool. I think money gives you opportunity. And that's really, when you talk about wealth building, it's one of the ideas to use. Okay. Here's how you would do that. Okay. This gets a little bit more into the how. If you had a loan officer, and let's say that you're 1, 2, 3, 4 years new to the industry, and you're going to work 30 or so years, and you got to 10 loans a month, and you got that to be your average, you would make about 40 grand a month, and you could easily save 7 grand a month. If you saved 7 grand a month, and that money grew at 10%, which is the average rate of return of the stock market, you would wind up with compound interest and saving $7,000 every month. You would wind up with 16 million in cash. Your house would be paid off, so your overhead would be low, and you would live on 66,000 a month. If that's too great, maybe cut the numbers in half. If it's not enough, maybe you double my number. That's not really the point. The point is for us to think about how could we create a long-term vision that fits our values and what we want to do in our life. And if we start really thinking that way, you're going to start doing that. Now, let's just touch on the metrics, and then we're going to touch on some feeling. If you obtain 50 referred leads a month, which may sound like a lot to people, it's very achievable. Like if you, and that's probably another podcast, but I'll show you how that breaks down math-wise. But if you were to generate 50 leads, you're going to close about 20% of those go to closing. I know everyone thinks it's more than that. Go check your numbers for the last 2 years. It's going to be around 20% close ratio of your leads go to closing. So that would be 10 loans a month. What that turns into as far as sales calls is 15 loan apps a month. So you're meeting in person with 15 loan apps a month that are either a refinance, they're looking for a house, or they already found a house and they're in contract. 15 of those a month, and you have another 45 meetings a month with referral sources, because that's where the leads come from. That's the math. Now, again, let's not get ahead of ourselves. If you are fairly new to the business and, it's going to take us 2 or 3 years to achieve that, that's okay, right? This is not a race, it's a career. And so when you think about these things long term, it tends to have a deeper effect on our day-to-day, like what we do. The last thing I want to cover, because this is really, I want to put thoughts and ideas in your head so that we think bigger. If I can go from a poor farm boy and I can do the things that I've done in business and save a ton of money, get super wealthy and become a huge loan officer, own a mortgage company, own other companies, you can too. I'm not special. I am really curious. I'm a good learner and I know how to ask people for help. If you were to ask me what I'm good at to grow, that would be it, okay? I also have always had big vision. I always wondered, my father actually had a pretty good success and he owned a couple companies and he drove a Cadillac, a white Cadillac, and he built a custom house on top of 5 acres. So when my friends came over when I was in like high school and my dad did all these things along with my stepmother, they thought they're rich. They did well and they have saved their money and they did good. They're not super rich, but like a farm sawmill town, they were rich. If they could do that, if I could do that, you could do that. The last part of this is just talking about why people don't think and do that. And the biggest thing, and I always hesitate I don't want to overgeneralize, but there's 2 types of people listening to this. There's people who think they can, and then there's people who think they can't. And that's the difference. If you're going to work anyway, why wouldn't we maximize our income? That makes sense to you. But when it actually comes to doing it, and we try a couple things and it doesn't work, we get defeated and say inside voice talk like, I'm just not meant to close 10 loans. I better be happy with 2. I still make more money than my sister, right? And we use all these weird justifications and thought processes that really are meant to make ourselves feel better. And I'm not saying I want you to feel bad. The quality of our life is the quality of our feelings. But what about we say, hey, those 3 things didn't work out that well, but next 3, I'll get at least one of them right. That's different. And that's a person that's going to win. There's a lot of phrases that people use to talk about this, but I think it boils down to self-belief. Do you feel that you're destined to do something above average? Or do you feel that you're destined to be average? I know this sounds weird coming from me. Either one is okay. Doing 10 loans a month and having 16 million, I think it's going to be an easier life. I think you're going to be able to do more things, but it's not going to, just because you have that ability doesn't mean like you're Superman or you don't have any problem. None of that's true. It's just a game that you play. It's like the game of raising kids. I use kids because we're all passionate about our children. You do your best, and sometimes they turn out great, very well adjusted. Sometimes I have 3 friends of mine. Unfortunately, their kids being drug addicts. Explain that. They had 3 kids. They grew up in the same house, and something happened. My point is to challenge yourself and to think bigger. Because even whether it's this vision that I sped at you or your own vision, the bigger you think, the more you'll do. We are here to enjoy life. We are here to have great feelings. We are here to help other people. We are here to love each other. All that's true. I'm suggesting to you that when you think bigger, it leads to more of those positive things, not less. I have friends and family members just like you. Unfortunately, some are doing great and some are not. Some are scared that they can't pay the rent from month to month or have any food. And I think you say, well, Todd, that's an extreme example. That's not me, but I'm just not sure if I can go bigger. Yes, you can. You always can go bigger. The question is, do you believe in yourself? Are you willing to go through failing 10 times to get the one win? Are you willing to put yourself out there? And I can't answer those questions for you, and neither can your spouse, and neither can God. You either have some of that self-conviction and risk factor in you, or you don't. So my point of this was, if you think long-term and then walks backwards, you'll get to the breadcrumbs. The breadcrumbs to have 16 million is close 10 loans a month, make 40,000, invest 7,000 a month, and all that stuff will happen. You're like, Todd, It's not easy to earn 40 grand a month. I didn't say it was. I'm saying it's possible if you want to. I would encourage you to be a little more aggressive in your career if you can, if it stirs any sort of desire in you. We spend 62% of our waking hours at work, thinking about work, getting ready for work. And if those 62 hours, it's the biggest part of your life. Kids are like 8%, spouses like 6%, like just nothing comes close to that 62%. So if you can take that 62% and make it more fulfilling and play the game at a little bit higher level, I'm going to suggest to you that the other areas of your life get even better. I'm not saying work 70 hours a week. I am not saying that. I'm saying in a reasonable work week, if we can make that 62% a bigger, more results, the other parts of our lives are probably going to expand. That's a theory for you to think about. I believe that's how it works. And so it's up to you to decide that. But don't ever shrink because we're scared. Fear is always the wrong choice. And unfortunately, it's what often people use to make decisions subconsciously about items like this, like strategic planning, wealth building. How much money can we really make? All of those things. Most of it is in our head and our heart. And when you connect the two, and you say, Todd's kind of right. It makes sense to maximize my income while I'm on this planet. And I have a passion for helping people. So let's do it. And that's kind of the message today. I know I'm throwing a lot at you. My point is to get you to brainstorm with yourself, to start to create a future that is way bigger than you think it can be. And when you start testing yourself, when you start thinking that way, you will get there. Think about 3 or 4 things that you thought you would never do already in your life that you've done. Maybe it's someplace you traveled. Maybe you never thought you would have kids and you have kids. Maybe you never thought you'd get married. You get married. Never thought you would graduate college and you graduated college, whatever it is. We all have things like that. I have a friend of mine from high school was coming down. He had bought concert tickets. I hadn't seen him for a couple of years. He brought a friend down, and his friend, unfortunately, became paralyzed in a car accident. So we're at my house just talking, and then we go to dinner. He proceeds to tell me he was the first physical therapist in California ever to be in a wheelchair. I just thought it was a cool story. He's busy. Like, evidently, he's really good because he does really well financially, and he told me his work schedule, and he's a mountain bike rider, and just all these things that he does. And he's in a wheelchair. And I just thought, man, how cool is that? He like holds the record in the state of California, being the first physical therapist that's in a wheelchair. That's cool. That's making life meaningful. I'm certain that he could have been in the wheelchair and be like, I'm stuck. I can't do something. I'll live on disability. I can't do anything. Did the opposite. It's a big setback. I wish I wasn't paralyzed, but I am. What can I do about it? And that's kind of what I'm sharing with you today is what can you do about it? Think a little bigger, a little more calls, a little more savings, stretch your brain, go for the big account, those kind of thoughts, and pushing ourselves every single day for fun because you can. I like that idea. I hope you share it with someone. This is one you could share with anyone that you think may appreciate the idea of thinking a little bigger. Have a beautiful week.